Muchachos amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time. It's like a little book club for music. It's a fun time had by all. I'm Petey Rave. I'm here with my crew, my team, my squad, my quorum. We've got David.
Greetings and salutations, Record Breakers listeners.
We've got Drew.
Dallas to Ohio. It's a really far drive.
Mm-hmm. And we've got Brett.
From downstairs to up here is a long way sometimes.
Depends on your
it's good.
Knees. Depends on your knees. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Like I'm getting boomerish.
We're here to talk about an album, talk about some music. Actually, we're talking about not a full-length album, but I kind of broke the rules with this pick for this week. The unwritten, unspoken rules that don't actually exist. I'm bringing an EP.
So, baseball.
Yes.
You know.
We're talking baseball. We're talking about an EP. We're talking about an album by an artist by the name of Lim Kim. An artist that we've talked about before when she was doing her main thing under her original agency. We talked about Goodbye 20 back again with her original career. Lim Kim was an artist that came up kind of like, born in Korea, went to New York for high school, won a talent show, K-pop star. She was in a duo with another artist, and she went solo because the other guy had to go back to school. And she spent much of her career under Mystic Entertainment, including releasing an album, Goodbye 20, that we talked about previously. Releasing a couple other tracks with kind of a different, very pop style, but unique enough that she had a unique voice, and it was, it wasn't bubblegum pop, but it was a pop bent. And somewhere around 2015, she stopped making music. 2016, they officially announced that her contract with the company was up, and that she was just gone. She was just gone somewhere. No one's seen her. No one, I mean, I imagine her friends and family had, but no one in public had seen her.
No one. Petey, at this point, we all know how this industry works with these women in Korean culture and music. She was sent to the shadow realm until recently. Well, and now we have this EP to talk about.
And she's 25. That old lady at 20. Yeah. Like, and that was years ago that she was, yeah.
Yeah, she went on to
shadow realm.
More like she went off to figure out what she wanted to do with her career, and with what she wanted to do, kind of like step away, step back, find her sound, I guess. But she was just gone, and now she recently put up her YouTube channel, released a teaser, released a song called Salki out of nowhere, which is I consider almost like the predecessor to this EP. And then she released this out of nowhere EP called Generation, and it's another example of like a quick departure. But before I get into like what's interesting about this EP,
Lim Kim is her name, everybody.
Yes, Lim Kim. Aka Kim Yerim, Lim Kim. Before I get into like the music aspects of this album, let's ask you guys about expectations. I'll go kind of a little backwards. Brett, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I barely remembered the original album, so I went back and I listened to some of it, and then I remembered, the voice, and then I also noticed the blonde hair. But yeah, and like a very different thing than what we'll get into how different it is. But let's just say I was not expecting pretty much any of what I got. Like. Yeah. And then I read some articles, and it all made sense.
Yeah. Drew, what were your expectations coming into this?
I didn't really have any. I just knew it was K-pop, so I figured it would at the very least be well produced, but that has taken us in a number of different directions before. So I was as eager to just hear it as anything.
Yeah. David, what were your expectations if somebody hadn't reviewed the previous album, just like blank slate?
Blank slate PD Rave, I had read up on Lim Kim after you announced that you were bringing this EP to the podcast, and I got an idea of her story and where she's at right now. So I was expecting, because as I've said on previous episodes of the podcast, my appetite for K-pop is finite. And I was excited to hear an artist that was, at least so the narrative says, is looking to remove herself from that machine and do something markedly different. So I was looking forward to hearing what would come out.
Yeah. And it is markedly different from what she's been doing before. It's at its core, it's very like experimental hip hop influenced music. Musically, it harkens to a couple of different artists, like particularly one that props up to me. MIA is going to be one that you'll probably zero in on. A couple other artists as well. It also draws from her wanting to be unabashedly Asian, like the name Generation. In both specific ways and very broad ways. I think musically it jumps back and forth, kind of like.
Wait, so the song "Yellow" isn't about the dog from the Disney movie?
No, not exclusively.
Oh, jeez, I am.
But the classic the old Yellow.
Yes.
Yes.
It's we'll get into the specific songs a little bit, but yeah, it is experimental and unapologetic in many ways.
It was either that or a Coldplay reference. Yeah, don't at me.
I'm happy
Shut
either way.
Yes. It mixes very aggressive like attacks with this music, but with like some slower, smoother, seductive moments. It has some interesting plays with like hip hop beats with like synths and some R&B feels, but with the more experimental world music sounds. It starts off with basically with Korean folk right at the beginning, and we'll talk more specifically when we do the breakdowns. But it mixes those sounds and generally familiar Asian tones when it wants to be more broad. But with like really cool hip hop electronic sounds, and it's very bold in many of its points. It does have some common sense pop sensibilities in other parts, but like it's very bold and very like unapologetic and very like aggressive.
It's not cookie cutter.
Yeah,
it's not cookie cutter.
And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about this album. It's not perfect. It's not, it's not without its flaws. It's not without its, valleys. But I think it's a very cool message, very cool statement piece as a comeback EP. But yeah, Brett, how would you describe this album musically?
I mean, the message and the tone is pretty straightforward. With it being such a shift, like I said, I read a couple articles. There's a Vice and a Billboard interviews where she goes in very great depth about the expectations of a female musician in that genre in that part of the world. And actually about how like the way that they had her singing before hurt her throat. So this is like a completely different style of singing. But the singing is only part of what's different. There's instrumentation. and a mix of beats that we don't ever hear. Hardly ever do we hear them together. It was a very different place to put vocals on top of than we've really seen on this show. The lot of there's a lot of English on this album, and that made the message come through pretty easy. Also, have you ever wanted to hear a digitized whale song?
Yeah. We'll talk about some digitized whale songs in a moment. But Drew, how would you describe this album musically?
Well, the cool thing, like you said, there's an unabashed love of oneself in this, I think, with your history and your culture in many ways, which I really, really dig. But it also, at times, like, really moved into some cool places. There was, like, very, like, almost tribal-esque drum beats in a lot of things. There was a lot of hip-hop flair in a lot of it. And it really went in a couple of different corners. And I think it was better for it. And that, to me, was the part that was super interesting about this entire record, was sort of all of the places it sort of showed up was really cool from a music standpoint. From, you guys have said it, if there was a statement piece to be had, I think there are in this, for sure. And I think that is something that's really cool. And you don't get a lot from the music that always makes its way west from this area of the world. But I think that this is a cool EP. I won't say album, but a cool EP to see that. I'd be interested in a more fleshed out full album.
Mm-hmm. David, how would you describe this EP musically?
It is the best kinds of experimental for music from this part of the world. I think that Lim Kim showed that a lot of traditional and world music sounds can work, even in a world as synthetic as K-pop. And I would love to see more artists and groups incorporate more of this into that world. I think that was executed really, really well here. I also think that there's a very cool mood and vibe throughout this entire EP. I don't think that it is 100% executed perfectly, but I think it is done at a very high level throughout, that there is a vibe and there is a mood that is very, very cool. That is very R&B-esque. Like, you don't see very many female solo artists putting out stuff like this anymore on this side of the world that has this kind of vibe, and I really enjoyed it. I will say that I would love to hear a full album of this, because there are some really good ideas and concepts throughout, with the incorporation of the hip-hop beats, sort of the alternative hip-hop and the slower side of things, a little touch of R&B here and there, and a little bit of dream pop, mixed with the East Asian tribal influence as well. And I think that Lim Kim shows that she has a very distinct, very charismatic voice as a singer. Her voice stands out in a very charismatic way. You can't ignore her. And if there was a full album of this, I think it would be an outstanding piece.
Yeah, I was almost like, I was hoping this was going to be an album. And honestly, I just was eager to even talk about this whole musical direction, or else I would have waited for an album, but I don't know if that is the part of the goal. I really was eager to talk about this EP. Of course, it is an EP. It doesn't have many tracks, but we could kind of zero in on the key moments in the tracks and talk about them specifically. We're talking about like themes throughout the different tracks. There's definitely some themes on Asian female empowerment and things like that. And we look at the key track for that in Yellow. In Yellow, kind of like it mixes a lot of different metaphors. It mixes several different metaphors, like referencing Asuka. I think according to Kin of Many of Genius, Asuka is a reference to Kumi Okubo from the Japanese Asuka 120% fighting game series.
Really?
According to because Kumi is the titular character's best friend and is a gymnast. Kumi's attacks in the game involve her rhythmic gymnastics. Also, she wears a yellow outfit. Because she says that Asuka told me I we the Kumi for girls. Wear fuku with the rose. She uses Chinese words, uses like Japanese words, like referencing my flavors like wasabi. We look in so kawaii.
Asian women. Yeah. Asian women.
And almost kind of like in a way to like
say it.
Asian women in computers that you could only get in Asia and fighting games that are awesome. It's great.
Yes. And playing with perception and stereotypes and things like that is such a really cool, clever, really cool, bold way. And it's the message of the song, who's the fucking queen? Like it's repeated, it's pushed in your face, and it's pretty fantastic. Lim Kim kind of declaring she chooses her own fucking seat. Like she's gonna sit where she wants. Going back to like the beginning, Minjokyo is really cool because it starts off with a very just attention getter. Minjokyo entrance in particular, as opposed to Minjokyo exit. Almost like an intro track, but it's a track. It's a full song in and of itself. It is a full on a pansori performance, kind of Korean folk music performance, and the tribal drums are very much those Korean traditional drums. Those traditional Korean choral elements are really fantastic. It's the one song that is entirely in Korean. It is very much. It's not. It doesn't mirror the sound of the rest of the album completely, but it does make a bold statement of what to expect on the album, which is really cool. And there are moments on some of the other tracks, like in Digital Con, how it's kind of like Digital Con is very MIS with like little moments later on where like it harkens to specifically Hitchhiker, who's the producer over and DJ that works over in SM, and with his Way Out sound. And yeah, and it ends fantastically with Minjokyo exit with like a very explosive ending. And mixed in there are like cool like softer moments. It's like Mong is a nice softer moment. Almost felt like if you added some distorted guitars and had Chino Moreno singing, it would make sense as a Deftones song. Mong, in some ways, like just like has
wow.
Stop. We're going places.
Like I don't know, like it has some of those other elements of like say specifically Digital Bath. Like it makes me think of that. I don't know, in some ways. I don't know. I could be way off base, but it just was something that just came to mind.
You're not wrong. It's just something like I didn't connect until then. That makes sense. That's weird, but yeah, okay, I get it. I get where you're coming from. I'm picking up what you're putting down, sir.
Yeah, I'm glad it came. I'm glad I'm not crazy. Well, I am.
You just took us on a journey, Petey.
Yes. That's just not proof. Brett, what will be some of the key like tracks or key moments in these tracks for you?
Like you said, I mean, it's an EP. We didn't have a whole ton to choose through, but like the ones we got, they all had like different acts in each song. Things went places. Yellow, an obvious song about a song obviously embracing heritage. My takeaway: those drums, super neat. Mong, yeah, it is. It is your more like sweet sounding, breathy vocal track on top of like a neat backing beat. Digital Con, I didn't expect this kind of song to be on this album, but the like blown out vocals with like the tiny gong, that's always great, and then like that little section where it's like the bass rider section of the song where you want to be in like 1995, blowing your subwoofers. Like it was very, very strange to have those two sound. Yeah. And Yo Soul, there's whale songs in this song. I don't know that we as record breakers have heard whale song yet, but yeah, whale song, bold choice. It gets my seal of approval.
Drew, what would be some of the key tracks or key moments for you?
Well, the beginning and the end, the Minjokyo, both of those tracks stood out to me for different reasons. One, like I said, the like weird tribalness of the beginning of this, and then the ending where it's almost like the vocals coming from a jazz club, but like juxtaposed with a like completely out of left field hip hop drum beat, I think is really cool. But I still think the standout track, the one that made me like sit up in my chair, and take notice, stand up in my chair like a crazy person, was Yellow. There's something about that like very Asian, empowering sort of flair to it that I really, really dig. Anytime you can be proud of heritage in a positive way, I think is really important. There are ways to do it right. I think Yellow does it pretty right.
Yeah. And an apologetic thing as well.
Yeah.
David, what would be some of the key tracks or key moments for you?
I enjoyed Mong. I felt like that was just a vibe, as the kids say. I enjoyed that one. But there was a lot of vibe all over this album. Digital Con, I did enjoy that one too, quite a bit. Controversial opinion, did not care much for Yellow. It was a bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Dissonant for me. Dissonant. And it was a bit off key for me. I don't really have an issue with the message in the song. I just felt as a composition it was a bit just a bit off.
I could definitely see that it is supposed to be kind of a little bit dissonant, a little bit abrasive. So I can see how that could turn some off, I think, from just a musical standpoint. But yeah, I don't mind it. I enjoy a little dissonant music every once in a while, but yeah, I can definitely see that. I want to hear Yellow. I want to hear Yellow's beat. I want to have like Shubzilla and Lexicon artists like throw bars on it. Just have a remix where they do, and or for the pop, or, if you want to hit the popular kids, we'll invite Aquafina as well. Yeah, have all three of them just throw bars on there. That would be a cool thing. But yeah, let's wrap around the horn, talk about some conclusive thoughts. Brett, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
I mean, one of the biggest things that I have always had somewhat of a hard time connecting with when it came to like pop acts from Korea is that it's very contrived and like a cast, and like it's less somebody going out and putting their heart into it. It's it's like a thing that has so many hands in it and so much like influence in the way that it finally comes out, whereas this seems to be coming from, as far as we know, It's coming from a very independent place where, this is the person who's performing's actual like art in completion. So like that's really neat. And I've never heard anything quite like this. So that's always a something that I find positive, because this is another one of those albums that I would never have heard ever if I did not know Petey. So, thumbs up.
Drew, how would you conclude on this album?
It was something that I really, the first time I listened to it, I was not expecting to be a huge fan, but as I listened to it more and sort of got into it, there's a lot of cool, like, nuance to it that I didn't catch the first time. And I think that is what actually made me really enjoy this record, is the sort of message behind it, in that, and now knowing, especially, like, hearing that message and seeing it and being like, oh, okay, like, I get it, like, that's a really good message to have, but then also, like, knowing, like, now that history, I think it's something really cool. In the album as a whole, like a total package, I think it's really well thought out.
David, how would you conclude on this album EP?
That it is a very well done complete piece from start to finish. There are a lot of ideas that are composed and put together really well, and I think that we have a very creative artist who should be allowed to have some creative control, because she comes up with some really interesting songs and ideas. The only thing that I will say, just because I'm going to do this, you should probably stick to singing, because the bars need work. But overall, it was really well done all around.
I think overall, as a package and as a mission statement, this is a really fantastic showcase, really fantastic showing, and there was an excitement for this to come out, because again, it was, from the time she had last released music to the time that they announced that her contract was up with Mystic, and the time where it's like, hey, anyone seen Lim Kim? Like, nah, she's gone. She's just gone. Like, she hadn't signed with an agency. She hadn't done anything. She hadn't been on TV shows. And, it's this as a statement. I mean, just when she had initially come back with Salki, which I almost feel like it's like an unincluded, unofficial part of this EP, just because it's a lead up. Like that coming out with that track, and she has a line in there is like, specifically says like, count on my absence. It contains a message. No, I don't compromise. Can't get me sabotage. I'm talking real representation. Like that line alone.
Asian women.
Yes. That line, along with her declaring herself an unfuckable creature, had me excited for this whole new vision and new direction for her music, and this was a nice like cap on that. Nice period on that initial statement. And I'm glad she released this, and I'm looking forward to more from her going forward. With this like bold, unapologetic, in your face, just challenging, crazy. I'm looking forward to her refining that. I'm looking forward to her finding even more of what is the new identity of Lim Kim. I'm looking forward to maybe a full album. That would be great. Or even if it's just random digital release, singles and things like that, will consume them. I just can't bring it back on the show. But at the very least, give me more music. So, Lim Kim is fantastic. I'm glad she's back. She's making music that she wants to make. Yeah. All right.
We all hope you've enjoyed this side episode of Hallyu Juku. I'm just kidding, Petey. It's the melatonin.
Yeah. I definitely talked about this on Hallyu Juku when I was like more hyped then. Yeah. Those are our thoughts on Lim Kim's Generation. Now we get to our the main event of the evening. After discussing the very serious, empowering thoughts of Asian representation, we're gonna appropriate Asian culture and do our haiku reviews. At least we're not misappropriating. We're not misappropriating. Do our haiku reviews. Let's get it started. Brett, what is your haiku?
Returning artist, like nothing we've heard before, short and effective.
Drew, what is your haiku?
A weird one for sure, but not without its moments. Understand appeal.
David, what is your haiku?
A Korean queen, free from the conglomerate. Good vibes, but weak bars.
My haiku. Lim Kim declares a bold new musical vision. Her future looks bright. And we look forward to Lim Kim's future. And you can, of course, listen and experience Lim Kim's presence on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers at home game. Listen to this album at home. Do your due diligence and your due diligence. Do your homework.
Do the needful.
Yes. On that Spotify playlist will be next week's record, and that is provided by David. David, what have you got for us next week?
What indeed, Petey Rave Record Breakers listeners, I will be bringing an album from 2019 from a group that I kind of discovered out of the blue. I'd really only given them a couple of spins, a couple of listens, and it will be the group Issues. No corn jokes, you lame, unoriginal geeks. The group is called Issues, and the album will be called Beautiful Oblivion.
So look forward to that. That'll be next week's record. That'll be next week. This is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Brett is at HibbityBibbert, HIBBITYBIBBARD. Drew is at Extras for X. I'm at Petey Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com is the email. Rebelli.net for listening to the shows. Rebelli TV on YouTube. Subscribe, like, share. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud.
Give Petey a positive review, everybody. He works really hard on this.
Do all the things, like, share, subscribe, all of that. Until next time, hasta los lobos.
Toodaloo.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.